Heartwarming truth revealed. 47 years old man's shocking transformation after discovering his 18 years old love, Jack Tanner, had always been a ghost. At 47, he worked in the local manufacturing plant, where the hum of machines drowned out his silent existence. Life had become a routine of long shifts and quiet evenings spent in his modest home with his two teenage kids, Emma and Jake. They were his world. He did everything for them. But even as he poured his sweat into making ends meet, he felt invisible. The townsfolk praised hard work, but they rarely saw the man behind the labor. No accolades, just solemn nods from neighbors who bore the same struggles. Then came Mia. She floated into their lives like a whisper of hope. At 18, she held the dreams that Jack had tucked away after losing his wife. Emma's friendship with Mia blossomed in high school, and Jack couldn't escape the warmth Mia brought into their home. It was contagious. Every time he saw her sketches, each stroke dripping with youthful ambition, it tugged at a part of him that had gone dormant. One evening, as Emma and Mia laughed over art supplies scattered on the kitchen table, Jack's heart tightened. It reminded him of the warmth he'd once shared with his late wife. Creating together, their laughter mingling with the smell of fresh sawdust from Jack's workshop. At time he picked up the pieces of his dreams. A flicker of ambition ignited within him. Could he revive his passion for woodworking, the very craft that had once brought him joy? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. So, Jack dove into woodworking, crafting pieces that were not just furniture but reflections of the love he had lost, the dreams he began to recover. Yet his attempts attracted harsh words from old friends who argued he was neglecting his family for a fool's chase. Every time they doubted him, he felt the weight crush him. Emma pulled away, feeling torn between her father's newfound passion and the financial tightrope they walked. The excitement of the upcoming art fair filled the air of their small town, a place where dreams could take flight, if only for a day. Jack's work would be displayed alongside Mia's. But just as excitement bloomed, tragedy struck. A tragic accident shattered the fragile piece they had started to build. Jack was left with tough decisions about standing tall against the very unfairness that plagued him or maintaining his silence to shield his children from further pain. As he grappled with the pressure, Jack realized it wasn't just his dreams on the line. It was the example he wanted to set for Emma. In a community that often judged rather than understood, would he find the courage to choose justice over silence? A heart full of hope struggled against the shackles of despair. Could he become a symbol of resilience? Or would his dreams unravel into the dark void that once consumed him? The answers were still unwritten, but one thing was clear: the fight for connection, acceptance, and the chance to transform his life had only just begun. Jack stood at the edge of his workshop, the scent of wood shavings and varnish mingling in the air. The pressure built within him, curling like smoke in his chest. Days had passed since the accident, yet the weight of it hung around him like a dark cloud. His thoughts flickered between the worries of the past and the anxious anticipation of the upcoming art fair. He never wanted to let his kids down, but the restlessness gnawed at him. He glanced at the pieces he had once poured his heart into. A handcrafted table sat in the corner, its surface gleaming under the soft glow of the overhead light. It was more than just a piece of furniture. It was a symbol of hope, a bridge between who he was and who he wanted to be. He ran his fingers along the smooth grain, his mind drifting to Mia. She had somehow reignited a light in him, and yet he felt torn. Emma entered the workshop, her expression a mix of apprehension and determination. "Dad, we need to talk," she said softly. The tension in her voice pulled Jack out of his thoughts. He recognized that look, the one when she was battling with something heavy. "I know things are tough right now," she began, her eyes glistening. "But I believe in what you're doing. I'm scared it won't be enough." The honesty in her tone struck a chord deep inside him. He was scared, too scared of failing, scared of losing hold of his dreams again, and scared of what the future held for them as a family. "I'm doing this for us. For you and Jake," he replied, forcing a smile, trying to reassure her. She watched him, skepticism knitting her brow. We can't let what happened take away our chances to shine. This art fair is our opportunity to show everyone what we're made of. I want to believe that, she whispered, shifting her eyes to the floor. But what if it doesn't go as planned? What if we don't have a fallback? As father and daughter stood in silence, the weight of her worries wrapped around him, tightening like a vice. He thought of all the moments he had hidden behind his regrets, and he realized this was not a time for silence. This was a moment to take a stand and teach her that dreams mattered, albeit terrifying to chase. I promise I'll do everything I can, and you'll see. Mia's pieces will be spectacular. We'll all take a step forward together, Jack said firmly, feeling determination surge through him. Even if it doesn't go as planned, we'll still create something beautiful. Emma nodded, but the look on her face told him there was more than concern lurking in her heart. He felt that familiar pang of helplessness rise again. Was he really strong enough to guide them through? Did he have what it took to turn dreams into reality? As they shared a moment of understanding, a loud crash echoed outside, the sound of chaos and voices. Jack's gut twisted instinctively. His heart raced as he moved towards the door, feeling the urgency of a storm brewing. He paused, looking back at Emma, who was already following him. Stay close, he murmured, holding her shoulder tightly. Together, they stepped outside, not knowing what awaited them. Jack could sense a shift in the air, a new challenge rising to as they rounded the corner. Jack's heart pounded louder in his chest. What kind of news would they face? Would he have the strength to support Emma and Jake once again, no matter what lay before them? The future felt uncertain, but beneath it all, a fire was stirring, a determination not to back down. With every step, they were about to find out just how resilient they could be. Jack stepped outside, the chaos enveloping him like a frigid wave. The air was sharp with tension, and he squinted through the harsh sunlight, searching for the source of the commotion. There, just down the street, a crowd had gathered. A car had skidded off the road, its front end crumpled against a lamppost, steam billowing from beneath the hood. Jack's heart raced, a pit forming in his stomach. Stay here, he instructed Emma, though he could see her resolve mirrored in her eyes. I'll check it out. Before she could protest, he crossed the road, weaving between onlookers. At the scene, a woman sat behind the wheel, dazed, with a trickle of blood running from her forehead. Jack felt an urge to rush to her side, but he held back, letting the crowd's murmur wash over him. Is anyone hurt? Someone shouted. Just as Jack prepared to reach out, he spotted a familiar face emerging from the crowd. Mia, her brows furrowed with concern. I called 911, she shouted, her voice cutting through the clamor. Jack felt an unexpected surge of relief at the sight of her. Did she always have a way of appearing when he needed her? The woman in the car began to cry as she tried to gather herself, her breath coming in shaky bursts. Jack approached, slowly and cautiously, hoping to ease her panic. Hey, are you all right? Can you hear me? She nodded, her eyes wide and frightened. I didn't see what happened. Everything's just a blur. Jack sat back on his heels, searching for words. He remembered Emma's fears, her worry that things might not go as planned, that everything was out of their control. Looking into this woman's distressed face, he felt that same helplessness wash over him. Okay, just focus on my voice, he said gently, trying to calm her. Help is on the way. Can you tell me your name? Sarah, she whispered, her voice cracks breaking through the panic. Suddenly, a siren wailed in the distance, a sound both familiar and terrifying. Jack looked around. He could feel the eyes of the crowd, and with it, the weight of their collective breath held in uncertainty. It felt like a reminder of all the things he thought he could control, yet here was proof that life had other ideas. Mia stepped closer, her presence a comforting anchor. You're doing great, Sarah, she encouraged, kneeling beside him. Their hands brushed as they both reached out at the same time. This simple touch electrified Jack, sending warmth through his chest amidst the chaos. Jack, Emma's voice called from behind them. He turned to see her weaving through the crowd, determination etched on her face. I want to help. The moment caught him off guard. His daughter was stepping into the uncertainty he had always shielded her from. He felt pride swell within him, mixed with a lingering anxiety. Would she discover the strength he was still searching for himself? Maybe you can talk to Sarah, Em? Keep her engaged, Jack suggested, his heart racing. It was a small step, but perhaps it was the push Emma needed. Emma knelt beside the car, her voice gentle and reassuring. Hi, I'm Emma. You're going to be okay, Sarah. Jack felt a shift in the air, as though Emma's calm presence was beginning to ripple out, affecting everyone around them. Mia exchanged a glance with Jack, her expression filled with an unspoken question. Could this moment help them connect even deeper? As they waited for the ambulance, Jack's mind swirled with thoughts of the upcoming art fair and everything riding on its success. But in the depth of this challenging moment, he felt an unexpected clarity. He couldn't protect his family from every storm, but they could face them together. Just then, the sound of screeching tires drew everyone's attention again. Jack's heart dropped as a motorcycle skidded to a halt, and Jake was thrown into the mix of anxious whispers. What had he done now? The warmth from the moment suddenly felt chilly. Jack braced himself for another wave of uncertainty, his mind racing with questions. What was going on with Jake? Had he also stepped into chaos? With Emma beside him, and Mia's encouraging presence, would Jack find the strength to guide his family through yet another challenge? Or would they all be swept away in the storm? Jack's pulse quickened as he turned to face the sudden chaos. The motorcycle lay sprawled at an odd angle, with Jake standing beside it. His son's face was pale, just as Jack had feared. It was a chill that crawled down Jack's spine. Dad! Jake shouted, a mix of defiance and fear in his voice. He looked around, eyes darting from Jack to the crowd, the weight of disapproval heavy in the air. Jack felt a surge of protectiveness mingle with disappointment. How had it come to this? Jack approached calmly, trying to mask his rising alarm. What happened? He called out, swallowing the urgency lacing his words. I lost control, Jake stammered, glancing back at the motorcycle that looked worse for wear. I swear I was just practicing. Practicing? Jack's voice caught himself mid-sentence, frustration splashing against the edges of his calm facade. Jake, this is not a game. What were you thinking? Stop. Emma interjected, her small frame stepping between them. He's scared, Dad. Her eyes darted to Jake. Are you okay? Jack felt a wave of admiring warmth wash over him. Emma, who had just stepped into a moment of fear, was now holding space for her brother. She believed in him, even now. Yeah, Jake began, but he faltered, looking at the setting sun that cast an orange glow over the gathering crowd. Deep down, Jack sensed his son was wrestling with more than just this incident. Mia knelt beside Jake, her voice soft but firm. Can you stand? We need to check if you're hurt. The concern painted her face showed Jack that she was there for both of his children now, not just a comforting presence amidst chaos, but an active participant in sharing the burden of fear that loomed over them. I'm fine, really, Jake said, though Jack noted the slight tremor in his hands and the way he clenched his fists. Jack could feel every heart in the crowd beating in apprehension. Their murmurs became an indistinct symphony of worry and judgment that made the air thick. He took a step closer to Jake, placing a hand on his shoulder. Are you sure? Look, the ambulance is on its way. Let us just make sure. But Jake shook his head fiercely. No, I don't need an ambulance. The determination in his voice was admirable yet reckless. Jack felt anger clawing its way back, but he had to choose the right moment to address it. What are you trying to prove? He asked, voice low but firm. You put yourself at risk, our family at risk. Before Jake could respond, the wail of sirens pierced through the air, and the red lights splashed across their faces, slicing the tension momentarily. Jack let out a shaky breath, hoping the paramedics would pave the way for clarity, for answers. I didn't mean to, Jake finally whispered, wariness in his eyes. I just wanted to feel something different, I guess. Those words hung in the air like smoke, heavy with truth. Jack's heart twisted painfully. He remembered being young and reckless himself, but the stakes seemed higher now. As the ambulance pulled to a stop, Jack realized he needed to convey more than just disappointment. This was about connection. Each moment was deliberately layered with complexity, urging him to breach the divide that had crept in between them. Turning to Emma and Jake, he felt his voice soften. Let us talk about this. But first he paused, glancing towards Mia. Let us make sure Sarah's okay. The three of them stepped toward the scene of crumpled metal, the remnants of panic beginning to fade. Would this moment of reality breathe new truth into his children's lives? But just as they neared the car, they heard a commotion behind them, a voice raised in anger, elements of another conflict brewing just out of sight. Jack's heart sank. What now? Could they really stand firm against the storm that threatened to unravel them? Or was this only the beginning of something far more complicated? Jack's pulse raced again, this time not from fear, but from mounting uncertainty. The shrieks and shouts from behind him pulled him away from the fragile moment he was trying to create with his kids. He turned, eyes scanning the crowd as adrenaline coursed through him. What is going on? Jack barked, his voice breaking through the murmur of the crowd. A man was shouting, fists clenched and veins bulging. Jack recognized him. It was Gary, a neighbor who lived a couple of blocks over. Gary's face was twisted in anger. His attention was directed at another family standing close by. Jack couldn't make out the details, but the tension felt suffocating. What is happening? Jack whispered to Mia, who stood at his side, visibly unsettled. They're arguing about something, just a misunderstanding, I think, she replied, her fingers gripping his arm. The scene unfolded, as if in slow motion. Gary took a step closer, his voice booming now. You think you can just park here and take up space? You don't own the street. There was an elderly woman, her hands trembling, attempting to apologize. I thought it was okay just for a moment to drop the groceries. No, it's not okay. Gary snapped, and Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Jack took a hesitating step forward. The instinct to protect was overshadowed by the lingering fear for his family. Hey, he called out, hoping to diffuse the situation. Let us all just take a breath. The crowd shifted uneasily, catching the ripple of his words. But Gary pivoted towards Jack, anger shifting its focus. What is it to you? You want to defend them? We're all neighbors here, Jack replied, keeping his voice calm, though his heart thudded painfully against his ribs. Let us just talk this out like adults. He glanced back at Jake and Emma. Their eyes held a mix of fear and confusion. The last thing they needed was more chaos. Suddenly, Jake spoke up. Dad, it's just a parking spot. Is it really worth this? Jack winced at his son's directness, but felt a flicker of pride that Jake was finding his voice in this storm. Right, Jack said carefully, using Jake's words to bridge the growing gap. We can resolve this without anger. The crowd quieted, tension still a raw nerve, but Jack could see the flickering openness in people's eyes. Yet Gary remained defiant, arms crossed tightly against his chest. You don't get it. These people are always causing problems enough. Jack interrupted, not wanting to let anger take root. Let us brainstorm solutions instead of criticisms. We can hear each other out. A little kindness goes a long way. There was a pause, a sort of collective breath held, like the calm before a storm. Jack held his ground, hoping to pull everyone together rather than tearing them apart. Slowly, the whispers began again. Maybe we should just communicate better, one woman suggested. Yes, exactly, Emma chimed in. Everyone has their reasons. And as surprising eyes turned toward her, a ripple of something new spilled into the air, a tentative understanding. Amidst this turbulent situation, Jack felt a shift. Perhaps it wasn't just about the motorcycle or the crowd. This was about community, how they faced everything together, how every relationship was forged in challenge. But just when it seemed the moment could settle, a loud crash echoed from nearby as someone knocked over a trash can. The sound pierced through the fragile peace, sending an uneasy wave of murmurs through the crowd again. Jack's heart sank. Could they really turn this tide together, or was tension truly inescapable? What would it take to heal these divisions, larger than just parking spots and misunderstandings? Would they drown in this chaos, or would the light of connection shine through? The loud crash seemed to hang in the air, a tangible reminder of the raw emotions swirling around them. Jack turned to see the elderly woman stumbling back, color draining from her face as she looked from the wrecked trash can to the crowd. The whispers grew louder, charged with anxiety and doubt, souring the delicate atmosphere Jack had tried to cultivate. Everyone, let us just take a step back, he urged, raising his hands, palms open. Accidents happen. We're all feeling a bit riled up. We can't let this spiral. His voice, usually steady, now trembled slightly. Mia stepped closer to Jack, her brow furrowed. Do we need to go? This isn't safe, she murmured, worry evident in her tone. Jack could feel the tension rolling off her, the uncertainty settling heavy in their midst. He looked again at Jake and Emma, who hadn't moved from his side, their eyes wide. Protecting them was all that mattered. No, he said softly, turning back to the crowd. Let us just stay calm. We can work through this together. Gary glared at him, his anger morphing into a steely gaze. You're wasting your breath, Jack. They'll never understand. Maybe we just haven't tried hard enough, Jack countered, his heart racing. He sensed the crowd shifting, feeling divided but showing signs of wanting to listen. It's been a tough year for everyone. Let us just spare me the lecture. Gary's voice was sharp, slicing through the air. What about when they block my driveway? Jack felt a rush of heat to his face, frustration bubbling up. You know it's not personal. It's just a group of neighbors trying to get by. It was turning into a battle of wills, one he desperately wished to avoid. As the crowd quieted again, Emma stepped forward. Sometimes we just assume the worst about each other, she said, her small frame imbued with unexpected strength. But if we really talked, maybe we'd see things differently. Her words hung like magic in the air, and the crowd, previously tight knots of anger, softened slightly. Jack caught Mia's eye, a glimmer of pride mixing with relief swelling in his chest. See, Jack replied, turning to Gary, hoping to bridge the gap. We haven't even started hearing each other yet. What if we could? Before he could finish, a voice cut through the tension, a deep, resonating tone, unfamiliar yet authoritative. I can't believe you all are fighting over parking spots. It was Ms. Holloway, an elderly lady known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense attitude. Do you children even know how to work out a feud without turning every little thing into a full-on circus? The crowd rippled with laughter, an unexpected moment of lightness that pierced through the heavy tension. Jack felt the tightness in his chest loosen, the air thick with new possibilities. Yes, Miss Holloway, Jake shouted, laughter bursting out, momentarily grounding them all with humor. Led by example, she continued, smirking, and for crying out loud, let us just communicate like human beings. The laughter spread, and the atmosphere began to thaw. People exchanged glances, smiles forming amid uncertainty. Jack noticed Gary's expression soften slightly, uncertainty mixing with a hint of curiosity. Let us give it a shot, Gary replied begrudgingly, his voice quieter now, the anger ebbing away. As people began to huddle together, Jack felt a wave of hope. Perhaps they could build something new from this chaos, a stepping stone toward understanding. But just as he felt the tide turning, the distant sound of sirens wailed through the streets, drowning out their tentative connections. Everyone froze, heads swiveling toward the noise. Instinctively, Jack's heart sank again. What other troubles lurked just around the corner? And were they strong enough to face them together? The wail of the sirens sliced through the fragile harmony that had begun to unfold, a stark reminder of how quickly peace could shatter. Jack's pulse quickened, the unease rippling through the crowd like a chill wind. Eyes darted from one person to another, seeking assurance, searching for answers. Maybe it's just a coincidence, Mia whispered, though her voice trembled. Jack knew she was trying to sound hopeful. Gary grimaced, his anxiety resurfacing. What if it's something serious? What if someone got hurt? His voice held a tremor of uncertainty, the earlier grievances momentarily lost. Jack felt the weight of his heart. He glanced at Emma and Jake. Their faces mirrored the worry filling his chest. Let us not jump to conclusions, he said, hoping to steady their nerves. We're not in the middle of Mayberry anymore. This town has its share of challenges. But even as he spoke, the growing concern was palpable. The laughter from moments ago faded, replaced by whispers that turned into murmurs, a cacophony of speculation feeding the anxious air. Just then, the sirens grew louder, drawing closer. Jack's gaze locked onto the street down the block. The flashing lights became visible, reflecting off the parked cars, creating a chaotic kaleidoscope of color. People began to shift uneasily, tension rippling through the crowd again. Should we? Mia started, her voice trailing off. No, Jack interrupted, firm yet gentler than he felt. Let us see what is happening first. We can't run off in every direction. That won't solve anything. Then, from behind the crowd, a group of paramedics jetted past, their urgency evident as they navigated through the scattered masses. Jack's heart dropped. This was real. Someone needed help. As everyone stood frozen, the air thickened with worry. Old resentments fell away, making space for something raw and powerful: the need for community. Jack took a deep breath, his instinct guiding him. "Look," he said, raising his voice carefully. "Maybe we don't know what is happening, but we know we're all neighbors here. Now more than ever, we should stick together." A few heads turned toward him, some were nodding slowly. Gary folded his arms, a reluctant agreement lingering in his expression. "We can't ignore what is happening just because we disagree over every little thing," Emma chimed in, her voice steady. "We need to be there for each other, right now." Jack felt a surge of pride. She didn't just speak. She commanded. The crowd seemed to absorb her words, echoing with their own nervous murmurs. Then, as if summoned by their renewed collective spirit, a figure stepped out from a nearby yard, an elderly man, grayed hair tousled, a concerned expression etched across his face. "I heard glass shattering. Is everyone all right?" Relief washed over Jack like a warm blanket. "They were all in this together." "We don't know yet," he replied, shifting his focus back to the crowd. "But we need to stay alert and support one another." Just as the murmurs were beginning to fade, a head emerged from behind the paramedics, a familiar face belonging to one of the neighbors. It was Mrs. Patterson, her arm in a sling, a look of both distress and relief breaking across her features. The crowd gasped, and the air thickened again, surging with unspoken questions and fears. "What happened?" Jack called out, the anxious anticipation buzzing in the marrow of his bones. In that moment, Jack understood it wasn't just about the parking spots anymore. It was about understanding, caring, a testament to their humanity. And as Mrs. Patterson's eyes met his, he sensed a journey ahead. Where would it lead them? Would they finally unite instead of divide? Or would confusion reign once more? The elderly man's voice faltered as he scanned the crowd, searching for clarity amidst the rising tension. "Is someone hurt?" he asked, his tone laced with concern and a hint of urgency. Jack shifted his weight, trying to maintain calmness while sensing the collective anxiety. "Mrs. Patterson, can you tell us what happened?" Taking a deep breath, Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. Her gaze seemed to soften as she spoke. "It's a long story, but I slipped while trying to fix a broken window. I wasn't thinking, and I lost my balance." The glass shattered everywhere. Sympathy washed over the crowd. They exchanged guilty glances, aware that their earlier squabbles felt so trivial now. "Are you all right?" Mia stepped closer, her voice warm, reassuring. "I'll be fine." Mrs. Patterson smiled gently, though her eyes told a different story. "Just a little shaken up." Jack could feel the relief permeating the crowd, but it was mixed with a lingering tension, shadows of their past arguments lingering like ghosts. "Does anyone need to call family or friends?" he offered, hoping to redirect their concern into something constructive. "I'll help," Gary chimed in, eager to support. As more neighbors stepped forward, Jack noticed Emma encouraging everyone to share their own worries. A few moments later, conversation sprouted, weaving into a vibrant tapestry of connection and care. The earlier anxiety began melting away. Yet, just as the mood began to lift, a low rumble of discontent rose from a corner of the crowd. A few older residents exchanged harsh words, one grumbling about the whole neighborhood being in disarray. It was a reminder of how thin the veneer of peace could be, easily punctured by unease. "Enough." Emma's voice rang out, sharper this time. "We've spent too long divided. Can't we see that we need each other? Look around. We're all that we have." The faces in the crowd shifted from irritation to contemplation. Jack could see gears turning as people processed her words. It was true. They had wasted so much time squabbling over petty things when there was so much more at stake. As the paramedics tended to Mrs. Patterson, Jack felt a strange urge to mend the broken connections that lay dormant. "Let us make this right," he said, glancing around at his neighbors. "What if we set up a community meeting? We could share ideas, grievances, and find solutions together." Whispers of agreement floated through the crowd. Mia nodded. "Yes, we could call it Neighbors United or something. A way to connect, support, and rebuild what has been lost." A wave of energy surged through the group. The tension morphed into determination. "It's a start," Gary said, his earlier anxiety fading. "Count me in." As people began to share suggestions, Jack felt the beginnings of hope ignite within him. The healing process had started, and it was not just about Mrs. Patterson's incident. This was bigger. Suddenly, a young boy rushed forward, his eyes wide with excitement. "Can I help?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. "Of course." Jack smiled, kneeling to meet his gaze. Everyone can help. Just then, an unexpected crash echoed from the back of the crowd, pulling all attention. They turned to find a bike had toppled over, yet it was less about the bike and more about the ripple of unease that followed. "Let us all take a deep breath," Jack called out, a hint of urgency creeping back into his voice. "This is what our meeting can address. How to keep our streets safe." The sense of community surged again, threading through them all. They stood together, no longer just a collection of faces, but a collective spirit willing to take action, motivated to support one another. Jack looked at Emma, her determination shining bright, and felt the weight of the moment press on his shoulders. Whatever happened next would not just shape their future, but could change the essence of who they were as a community. And just as they settled into their renewed purpose, a distant sound caught Jack's attention, a crackling voice on a loudspeaker announcing a much deeper crisis within town. What was happening, and could their new unity withstand the storm that loomed ahead? Jack's heart raced as the voice crackled through the loudspeaker. The words were urgent, tinged with a seriousness that sent a ripple of fear through the crowd. "Attention, citizens. We regret to inform you of an unfolding situation in town. Please remain calm and stay indoors until further notice. This is not a drill." The collective gasps echoed across the gathering, painting a picture of anxious faces lit by the fading sunlight. Jack exchanged a worried glance with Emma, feeling the tension mounting again like a storm cloud. Just moments ago, they were knitting their community back together, but the sudden announcement felt like a bolt of lightning in a storm. "Stay indoors," someone shouted from the back, panic lacing their voice. "What is happening? What do they mean?" Before Jack could gather his thoughts, the young boy who had been so eager to help stepped forward again, eyes wide and shimmering with worry. "Is it the bad guys?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper, fear creeping into every syllable. Jack knelt to the boy's level, forcing a calmness he didn't feel. "We don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together, I promise," he reassured. He looked around at the faces blurred by uncertainty. "Maybe we should gather right now, talk about what we've heard. Please share your thoughts. It's important we don't isolate ourselves." The crowd began to form tighter around him, nodding as murmurs began to rise. They were scared, unsure of what lay outside their front doors, yet strangely united amidst the chaos. "Okay, what do we know?" Emma prompted, stepping up at Jack's side, her brows closely furrowed. As a natural leader, she kept her voice steady and strong. "What do you all think is happening?" A woman with silver hair, a regular at the block parties, spoke up. "I heard some sirens earlier. I thought it was just the usual noise, but now it feels different. They might be evacuating part of the town. What if it's something serious?" Gary interjected, worry etched on his face. "What if there's a flood or something worse? Or a fire?" A man added from the back, his voice tense. "This area has been prone to wildfires recently. What if it's spreading?" Each comment added to the swell of anxiety. Jack felt the weight of their fears pressing down. "We need to stay connected," he said, his voice amplified by the rising emotion. "What we have now, this support, this strength, it's everything we need." With every word, Jack noticed their surroundings brightened with hope. Even in the uncertainty, there was strength in unity. They shared stories of community, of pulling through together in the past. Jack could feel the surge of connection rekindle. "Maybe we need to spread out, check on each other," Emma suggested. "We can form small groups, make sure everyone is safe at home. Being together is the best way to combat fear." The group nodded, and a plan formed, sparked by adrenaline and the desire to protect one another. As the neighbors divided into groups, Jack felt a sense of pride blooming in his chest. They were gathering their courage, shielding one another from the unknown, facing the storm together. But just as they were about to disperse, the overhead speaker crackled again, sharper this time, the urgency palpable. "Residents, please be advised. There has been a disturbance reported near the old mill on the outskirts of town. Any information is crucial. Please stay tuned. What was out there, and why did it feel like this moment might change everything they knew forever?" Jack stood at the edge of the crowd, his heart racing with uncertainty. The message hanging on the loudspeaker felt ominous, a dark cloud over the renewed spirit they had just built together. He glanced at Emma and Jake, their faces painted with concern, but he felt a determination building. They'd come this far, and they weren't going to back down now. Listen up. Jack's voice cut through the murmurs of anxiety, steady and loud enough to capture attention. Whatever's happening out there, we're a community. We've been through too much together to let fear divide us now. Emma stepped next to him, her youthful courage shining bright. We can't let panic take hold. Let us check on neighbor after neighbor, make sure everyone is safe. Her voice trembled but held a fierceness that Jack admired. Mia stood close by, her eyes scanning the faces of the crowd. I have a few first aid kits from my art supplies. We should make sure everyone has what they need, in case it gets worse. Jack felt a rush of love for these young souls. Right. Let us gather supplies and split into groups. We stay close, and we stick together. If something is wrong, we'll face it side by side. One by one, neighbors began to join the planning. A group of mothers collected blankets and food. Others prepared to go door to door with messages of support. The camaraderie grew warmer, like a blanket wrapping around their shoulders. Through the uncertainty, Jack felt his heart swell with hope. As they prepared, he felt a gentle tug at his arm. Turning, he saw Sarah still pale but steady, now being helped by Mia. I overheard something else, she whispered, her breath shaky. People are saying there's been trouble at the mill, that the old machinery is unstable. Staying close is key, Jack encouraged, the weight of her words sinking in. That's our priority. We need to make sure nobody is in danger. Just as the first groups began to set out, the distant rumble of sirens grew louder, and Jack's resolve only strengthened. He watched Emma and Jake pair off with Mia, each taking a mile of the neighborhood to cover. Stay safe, he called, pride blossoming within him. They turned back with fierce nods and shining eyes, ready to take on the unknown. The town felt different now. The air buzzed with an inexplicable energy of kinship. No longer just a collection of individuals, they were a family. He started moving to the next block, urging neighbors to come together. What's this bad news we heard? He asked a couple gathered on their porch. Their expressions cleared a little as they explained how murmurs had spread fear of an imminent catastrophe. They wanted to hunker down and hide away, but Jack showed them that action was better than silence. I understand the fear, he said, but together we can be the strength our town needs. There's power in community, and it can lift us through anything. As he continued door to door, the world outside felt electric. He touched lives softly but earnestly, sharing stories, laughter, and an unwavering spirit. With each interaction, the weight of despair seemed to melt away. Amidst it all, he spotted Mia and Emma, helping an elderly couple organizing their garden in the face of fear, their laughter ringing like a bell, a reminder of normalcy amidst chaos. We're all in this together, Emma called to him, and Jack's heart soared. They were learning not only to overcome but to thrive in unity. Finally, word spread through the crowd as settled calm. The disturbance near the mill seemed contained. A few officers had arrived, ensuring everyone's safety. The collective sigh of relief echoed around him, sweeping like a warm breeze. Jack turned to see the folks he had helped earlier come together on their street. Neighbors were now sharing food, stories, and laughter once more. Jack found himself tearing up, the weight of pride and love filling him to the brim. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting golden hues across the sky, reminiscent of freshly polished wood. Everything felt possible in that moment, like dreams that had been tucked away ever since his wife. Pas could finally breathe again. He took a step closer to Emma. You carried the torch today, didn't you? He said gently, pulling her into a strong embrace. I learned from the best, she whispered back, her heart as loud as the cheers rallying around them. As the townsfolk reunited, Jack felt transformations radiating practically, bursting forth like the flames of the fire that once burned in his workshop. The fears that had once entangled him and divided the community fell away, replaced by purpose and connection. This is just the beginning, he thought, looking out over the gathering, full of resolve. The shadows of the past may loom, but within each person gathered here was the spark of hope, the promise of a change worth fighting for. Jack took a deep breath and looked at the energetic chaos around him. They weren't alone. They never had been. And together, they were unstoppable. Now is the time to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. It truly makes a difference. Comment down below with your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. I want to hear from you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second. Real fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Thank you.